Council members, council officers, ladies and gentlemen, please stand to receive the Worshipful Mayor, Councillor Michelle Smith.
Good evening, members of council. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. There are no plans for a fire alarm test. Exits are either side of the chamber. Mobile phones off or placed on silent, please. In relation to filming or audio recording the meeting, I can confirm that no requests were received before 5 p.m. today. Please note that the meeting is being live streamed and anyone who does not wish to be filmed can listen from the breakout area out there. Before we begin, I would like to observe a short silence as a mark of respect for Sheila Conway, OBE, who was a councillor for Helmshaw and Skye between 1973 to 1976 and Helmshaw Ward from 1976 to 1992. Sheila was Mayor of Rosendale from 1979 to 1980 and was made an honorary alderman in 2009. Prior to being a Rosendale councillor, she was also a Haslingden district councillor. Sheila will be greatly missed. Please can we stand to observe a short silence. Thank you. Please be seated. We have no public or members' question registered tonight, so we'll now commence the council meeting business. A1 is apologies for absence. I have apologies from Councillors Driver, Kenyon and Walmsley. Are there any other apologies? Councillor Barnes.
Could I give Councillor Samara Barnes his apologies, please?
Any others? Councillor Harrison. She's not here. Oh. Okay. A2 is minutes of the meeting held on the 4th of March 2026. Can I have a mover for those minutes?
I'll move them, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. And the seconder?
I'll second, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Can we have the vote? Those in favour? Okay, that's clear and carried. Thank you. Are there any declarations of interest? Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As a member of Whitworth Town Council and of the Rossendale Leisure Trust Board.
Councillor Lithgow. Sorry. Councillor Harris.
A queue forming. As a member of Rosendale Harriers in relation to item C1.
Thank you. Councillor Lithgow.
Rosendale Leisure Trust.
Thank you. Councillor Ritson.
Whitworth Town Council, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Neil.
Likewise, Whitworth Town Council, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Any others? Oh, Councillor McInnes.
Sorry, I just remembered I'm a member of Rosendale Harriers.
Any others? Thank you. Okay, item A4, there are no urgent items of business. B is communications. I have no communication. Does the head of paid service have any communications?
Just one item, Madam Mayor. Following the by-election on the 2nd of April, I'd like to welcome Laura Diamond as a Hare Home and Waterford Ward Councillor, and the amended committee membership has been uploaded to the website for information.
Thank you. And welcome, Councillor Diamond. I can't get my words out tonight. Right. Does the leader of the council have any communications?
I do, Madam Mayor, and I will also welcome Councillor Diamond to the chamber. I haven't had opportunity to say hello to Laura yet, but welcome to Rossendale Borough Council. And if I will say to you what I say to everybody that's elected to this council, if I can be of any assistance to you in any way, please let me know. Okay. My item for this evening's communications is the Better Lives strategy has been launched. A new netball club has been launched at the Adrenaline Centre for girls aged between 7 and 16. And there is now a core group of 50 netballers and 4 New England Netball Level 1 coaches. A talented athlete scheme was also launched by Rossendale Leisure Trust, supporting these athletes in Rossendale that have achieved regional, national and international success. So I'm sure all members of the Chamber will welcome both those initiatives. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barnes. We'll now move on to item C, which is ordinary business. And item C1 is delivery of a sustainable leisure offer for Rossendale. Can I have a mover for that report?
I will move the report, and if seconded, I will speak to the report. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Do I have a seconder for the report? Councillor McKinney.
I'll second the report, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Barnes.
Thank you. We're clearly missing Andrew tonight, aren't we? Okay. I'm not really going to talk about the report as much as to try and tell the story, really. Rossendale Leisure Trust has served the borough well since 2004, supporting leisure, sport, cultural and community provision. But the model is showing strain. Operating costs have risen. The facility portfolio is ageing, and the legal and financial architecture between the council and the Leisure Trust no longer reflects how services are delivered. So in September last year, we commissioned a full review. And really, what members have in front of them this evening is the outcome and route forward of that review. So I'll try and outline the problem. The Leisure Trust operates close to break even, and it does so consistently. It can't generate a surplus, and a surplus is needed to invest in its facilities or repay the £1.3 million intercompany loan it owes the council. So without intervention, the trust either runs facilities into the ground or comes to the council for further subsidy. And that, given the financial pressures all districts face, is just not sustainable. We also have local government reorganisation. That particular clock is ticking with vested day on the 1st of April 2028. Decisions on the operating model need to be taken very quickly and taken this year. Otherwise, they get tangled up in the shadow authority processes and potentially different political priorities. So what are we proposing? There isn't a single decision here. It's an interconnected package of decisions and 3 things that work together. First, to change how the Leisure Trust operates and move to an agency model. And this will enable the Leisure Trust to recover VAT, which currently cannot be claimed back. This alone is worth £92,000 a year, and that's every year. Second, reshape the portfolio and focus the Leisure Trust on its core purpose of physical activity, sport and leisure, and take considered decisions on the 3 facilities that sit outside the core. And that they are the Ashcroft, the Whitaker and the Hill. Third, invest where the evidence supports it. Malpits, the Pioneer and Adrenaline, backed by our capital programme, the capital programme that was approved by members earlier this year, and unlock Sport England place capital and some funding from Pride in Place funding pot. Taken together, we're looking at over £5 million worth of investment in our leisure services. Okay. Taken together, this creates the financial headroom the Leisure Trust does not currently have. It is what allows the council to lever in external investment, and it is what positions Rossendale to enter the new unitary authority with leisure on a sound footing rather than an unresolved problem, which I think is where we are today. Members will rightly ask about the Hill, the Whittaker and the Ashcroft. So I'll be very direct about each and every one of those facilities. The Ashcroft has effectively become an events and community venue that really supports Whitworth more than it supports anywhere else. In saying that, there's a lot of kind of interconnection between Whitworth and Bacup as well. The Town Council have expressed some initial interest in taking on the facility. If this interest is still current, we are inviting an asset transfer subject to a comprehensive business plan. We are not closing the facility. That is where we're hoping to go with it, that asset transfer to the Town Council. The Whittaker remains within the Leisure Trust for now. The long-term aspiration of independence is shared by the Trust's leadership and the Whittaker's chair, but only when conditions are right. The Hill, that's the toughest. Effectively, what we have with the Hill is a regional resource, but of course we don't have any regional bodies wanting to support its maintenance and investment. The Hill, it is the toughest. The recommendation tonight is to retain it under RLT's operation and commission a proper options appraisal in the near term. There is, of course, a £470,000 Sport England grant with clawback provision attached to it. So anything relating to the Hill needs to be considered very, very carefully. And I think we just do need to do the Hill the service of looking at it properly and not dismissing things out of hand. This package gives, I believe, it gives the Leisure Trust a much firmer footing going forward. It gives our residents better facilities and it gives us a stronger position when the LGR conversations get serious in 2027. And it gives the new unitary authority something cohesive to inherit rather than a problem to solve. So I recommend these recommendations to Council and I'm happy to take questions. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Barnes. Do any members wish to comment? Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Let me start by reminding members of my declarations of interest at the beginning of the meeting as a member of Whitworth Town Council and of the board of Rossendale Leisure Trust, and by saying that the Conservatives will support the recommendations in the paper tonight. We welcome the proposed investment in Marpits and the potential for the Ashcroft under the right conditions to be transferred to Whitworth Town Council. And I want to start with Whitworth, if I may. The tone of the paper implies that somehow this council is waiting for Whitworth Town Council to come up with a plan. But the fact of the matter is that some months ago now, Whitworth Town Council expressed interest in a number of assets held by the Borough Council, including the Ashcroft, hoping to enter constructive discussions ahead of LGR. No formal conversations have yet taken place, although it was encouraging to hear the leader allude to that a second ago. So it's the Town Council waiting for those discussions rather than the other way around. More broadly, this paper is more remarkable for what it doesn't propose than what it does. It will soon be 3 years since this council received the Grant Thornton report, whose actions, amongst others, included the closure of Whitworth Leisure Centre. And it's not much longer since Rossendale Leisure Trust got a new chief executive, who, for the record, has done an extraordinary job of getting the trust on a more sustainable financial footing than she inherited, but who at every single stage has been abundantly clear that what the trust needs to move forward is direction from the council and a credible pipeline of investment to deliver it. Following the completion of the actions in the Grant Thornton report, the Cabinet promised us a strategic review of leisure in the Valley. Tonight's report is supposed to represent the outcome of that review. And at this point, I want to put on record my disappointment that the full review was not shared with members as a matter of course. There isn't a single one of us here whose residents aren't affected by changes to leisure provision in the Valley, and we deserve all of the facts. And I do want to thank the Chief Executive for sight of it last night. And I'm afraid I think the decision not to share the full review or even the recommendations of this paper before they were made public with the Leisure Trust Board was a mistake. In the time I've served on the board, a lot of work has gone in from both sides to ensure the relationship between the Trust and this council is productive. And the board, through the Chief Executive, to an extent, are the people who will be tasked in practical terms with implementing these recommendations. So while I accept it's within the administration's prerogative to do things this way, I think it's a missed opportunity. But back to those recommendations, Madam Mayor, and to why they fall far short of what's required. Yes, there's the welcome confirmation of the investment of £2.5 million in Marl Pits announced at the budget, and the proposal in relation to the Ashcroft and the other facilities. But let's briefly look at each facility and what the report says. The Whittaker, retained under current arrangements. The Hill, retained under current arrangements. Pioneer, relocated to an unnamed new site. And a vague commitment to a medium to long-term remodelling of the Adrenaline Centre. Madam Mayor, this is delay dressed up as delivery, and that would be bad enough if we had time. We don't. The council adopted its vision for leisure facilities in Rossendale in December 2022, including a pool at the Adrenaline Centre and a new facility in the east of the borough. About either of those things, we have heard nothing since. And how can this review have any credibility referring to medium to long-term improvements when we all know the council will cease to exist in 2 years and likely face significant restrictions on its spending in just 1? The report rightly identifies the risk of not acting as we move towards LGR. But the only reason that we're being forced to act at this late stage is because so little has been done to date. And there's no excuse. The leader didn't arrive last month, nor last year. No, Madam Mayor, the council has been led by the same party and the same leader for nearly 15 years. 16 budgets so far, and many more than that number of opportunities to take action to secure the future of leisure in the Valley. All placed in the too difficult box, perhaps in the hope that they would get to it before it was too late. Well, guess what? It's too late now. And even if tonight's proposal is fulfilled, which we hope it will be, the Valley's residents will be left with a leisure estate below the industry standard and, crucially, behind those of our near neighbours. That leaves us vulnerable when efficiencies are inevitably sought under a new council, whichever form that takes, and that's all the more unforgivable for it being completely preventable. And no doubt the leader will respond by decrying the cruel Tories and our so-called austerity, but that is a complete red herring. This council has the capacity to borrow to invest in leisure. It has chosen not to use it. Yet when £6 million is required to build a waste transfer station that no resident wants and for which the business case remains unclear, it goes on the books without delay. Madam Mayor, this administration's record on leisure is the perfect crystallisation of the leadership of this council over the last 15 years. 15 years, 16 budgets, more than enough time to take strategic decisions, more than enough time to build modern facilities fit for the future, more than enough time to act before LGR forced these decisions upon us. Instead, the difficult choices were delayed, opportunities were missed, and investment was put off year after year. And now, just as this council approaches the end of its existence, we're presented not with a bold vision for leisure in Rossendale, but with re-announcements, feasibility studies, future appraisals, and medium-term aspirations. Madam Mayor, residents deserve better than this. They deserve better than watching this administration discover a sense of urgency at the 11th hour. Because the truth is this: the challenges facing leisure in Rossendale were not in any way unavoidable. They were foreseeable and they were foreseen. And this administration ignored them for far too long.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Ritson, I think you were next.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I'll be voting for it, as there's no way you could vote against investment into any sort of leisure facility. I also won't repeat exactly what Councillor Smith has just said, because I agree with every word. But one question I will ask, and I wish the leader could come back in the debate to answer that, is that why, in your opinion, was the Rossendale Leisure Trust Board not given oversight of this before it went public? Thank you.
Councillor Lithcott.
Just for clarification, the Chief Executive did attend the last board meeting and went through the main findings of the report. So it's not true to say that things weren't shared with them.
Yeah.
So I wanted to put that right. And secondly, that no resident wants a waste transfer station. Well, I do. So that's not true either. Thank you.
Councillor McKinney.
Yes, I want a waste transfer station too, and I think most residents would actually find it quite useful once we've got it. Yes, and to confirm what Councillor Lithgow said, as the lead member for leisure, I met with the Chief Executive of the Leisure Trust last week, and we went through the report. The Chief Executive had sight of the report. I don't know what happened with the board, but you know, I don't know how long Councillor Smith has been on the board, but it does seem a bit rich to just stand up here today and decry everybody for inaction around the Leisure Trust when Councillor Smith has actually been a member of the board. What's he been doing over all these years? Just standing up here now and blaming everybody apart from the board. You know, there's a responsibility that comes with that post, and maybe he needs to look at his own behaviour as well. But I welcome this report, and I think, being realistic, we have 2 years before we hand over to a unitary authority. And we need to remember that leisure provision isn't a statutory duty. We don't get any funding for it. Everything has to be bid for from bodies like Sport England and the Football Foundation. And we do not get any funding. So yes, it would be nice to have a pool in Haslingden. It would be nice to have a pool in Bacup, but we do not have the funding for it. And I'm sure Councillor Smith understands this as a member of the board. But I do welcome the report. I welcome the recommendations. We have to hand everything over on a sound footing to the new unitary authority. And my hope is that the new unitary authority will have some public health funding, which at the moment is held by Lancashire County Council. And public health is very important in promoting physical activity and sport. And I do hope that when we have a unitary authority and we are dealing with our entire budget and we're not having to go cap in hand to Lancashire County Council all the time, that we will get funding for leisure facilities to promote the health and physical activity of people in Rossendale. And I do hope that that's one of the reasons why I support the formation of a new unitary authority, as opposed to the out-of-date two-tier system that we've got at the moment. So I won't go through all the recommendations because people have already done that. I do just want to say about the Hill, which is in my ward of Longholm. I was disappointed to see the front page of the papers saying that the Hill was going to close. I think that was a little bit disingenuous of the press. What we are actually proposing is that we retain the Hill and that we undergo a full options appraisal, which could cover anything from further investment to diversification. But we need to, the report acknowledges that the Hill is a really difficult area and we have to go into that in more detail, but we are not going to close the Hill. And I was disappointed to see that being the angle that was reported. I don't believe that to be true. And that's certainly what I'm saying to residents in Longholm. Just in terms of Marl Pits, I welcome the investment into the gym and the studio. The devil with these things, the devil is always in the detail. And do think that there could be some issues with asset transferring the outdoor sports facilities to a CIC, a sports group, and I think there's a lot of work to be done around that. And I do hope that something will be done about a big bugbear of mine, which is sports, the storage available for sports equipment at Marl Pits. Because at the moment, we've got a plethora of shipping containers around the fields at Marl Pits, which look really unsightly. I do understand that sports clubs have to store the gear somewhere, but I do hope that when the outdoor facilities are looked at, which is, again, one of the recommendations here about the pavilion and maybe building a new stand, that some thought is given to providing storage facilities so we can finally get rid of some of these rusting shipping containers that are a bit of a blot on the landscape. That's all I wanted to say at the moment. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor McInnes. Councillor Woods.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I hope what I've got to say somewhat complements what Councillor Smith has said and addresses some of the other points that have been raised. Investment into sport and leisure facilities in Rossendale is long overdue, and any step forward to improving provision for our residents is to be welcomed. However, support for the recommendations should not be mistaken for agreement in how we arrived in this position. Rossendale as a trust was established in 2004, as we know, as an independent body, in part to allow the recovery of VAT in a way that the council itself could not achieve. That original rationale is important because today we're effectively being asked to move back towards a model that reintroduces that benefit through different means. That raises a fundamental question. Why have we allowed the situation to deteriorate to the point where such structural change is now required? The reality is that the Trust's current position has not risen overnight. It's the direct result of years of insufficient investment and a lack of long-term strategic direction from the Council. Facilities have been allowed to age, opportunities have been missed, and decisions have often been taken in isolation rather than as part of a coherent borough-wide plan. While I welcome the proposed capital investment, particularly at Marl Pits, Pioneer and the Adrenaline Centre, though I doubt there'll be enough money left for the Adrenaline, or fear it, I do have to express disappointment at the neutral holding position being taken on key assets such as the Hill and the Whittaker. These are important community facilities, as has been said, and simply deferring decisions about their future does not provide clarity or ambitions that the ambition that residents deserve. We must also be honest in how we got here. The financial challenges facing the Trust are not solely about its operating model, they're a consequence of underinvestment. The Council has been, in my view, under-borrowed and overly cautious, failing to demonstrate the level of ambition needed to properly sustain and modernise our leisure offer. And that caution did not arise in a vacuum. It follows the significant cost to the Council from the failure of the Empty Homes project and the shortcomings in its subsequent management. That experience may explain the historic reluctance to invest, but it should not have led to years of drift in leisure services. We've already seen the consequences of that approach, as approach has been mentioned. 2 swimming pools have been closed, one despite the commitments made in 2022 by-election regarding Haslingden particularly, and they've not been replaced. That represented a significant loss to communities across the borough and undermined confidence in the authority's ability to deliver leisure services and on promises. I'm also concerned about the broader context in which this report sits, with local government reorganisation on the horizon. We've talked about timescales, but there is a risk that this review becomes less about long-term transformation and more about managing the presentational position as we approach transition. In simple terms, it risks looking like a kicking the can down the road exercise. We are, after all, on course to hand over to the new authority with around £3 million in hand. There's no guarantee this funding will be reinvested in Rossendale once we change over post-reorganisation. If that is the case, then we are failing our responsibility to act in the best interests of our residents now. That said, as has been said, we're supporting the report because doing nothing is not an option, but our support comes with obviously a clear expectation that the promised investment is delivered and a genuine long-term strategy is developed. We don't continue to defer the difficult decisions that are needed to secure the future of leisure in Rosendale. We should all continue to scrutinise progress closely and push to ensure that these improvements are not just proposed, but actually realised. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Woods. Councillor Cheetham, did you wish to speak?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just would like to declare a slight interest, which is the Hill. As you know, a number of us were there at the opening of the Hill. And this was something that had transformed us in this part of Lancashire. And I can appreciate very much the excitement that we had at that time for that particular facility. I have to say that we did appear to have more snow than we have in recent years. But I can remember myself organising an event at the Hill, which was extremely successful, a 24-hour ski challenge, which was to launch the project. But it is like a lot of things, certain sports go up in people's support and other sports fall down the hill. And all my family have appreciated the Hill. They were taught and learnt there. And children who watch the Olympic Games, and I have to say that I think that the Paralympics that we saw this year, I noticed that our site was mentioned on 2 occasions for Rosendale, which was from a young man who was originated from Bolton, and said how much he appreciated ours because we were open in the air. And of course, all snow sports are really participated in the air and not in an enclosed environment, which is when Manchester, well, it wasn't actually Manchester, it was Trafford Centre, decided to open their indoor centre, which of course costs a lot of money to attend. But I just wanted to say that I can appreciate that we always have to review what's going to take place. We have an Olympian who has done all his start, was at the Pendle Centre, which opened just about 6 months before ours did, in actual fact. And I have to say that at that time, that particular authority were not very happy with us, Rosendale. And, you know, we might have to be playmates together in the future. But I just feel that from time to time, where we have done something which has been rather unique, I hate to see it, all that work and effort that went in originally. And I wasn't on the council at that time, but I was married to somebody who was. And it was with great application that he and 1 or 2 fellow councillors, when that slope was opened, they were initiated to go down the slope. I'm pleased to say on that occasion, he did not break his leg, but we did have 1 or 2 incidents. But let us be proud of what has been achieved. I think it is right that we have an update as to exactly what investments we have in this valley, and that when we hear what our future may be, we know what we have got, what we are proud of, what we know will be effective for a much wider group of people to attend. So let us not be over despondent, but it's always right that we review what investments we have within certain activities which attract people in. And we work with the other agencies in marketing to make sure that people are aware. But the Hill, to me, is unique. And I always look at it every night in the winter months when we just have those lights there. And you think, good old Rosendale, out in the fresh air, getting up and down that slope. Walking up is an exercise in its own right before you even ski down. But let us be proud of what has been achieved. Yes, there are ups and downs, and we will be having the Olympics again. And, you know, people will suddenly say, I want to have a go at that. And we want children to get involved and investment. And I know there's a number of local schools have had parties as part of their outdoor activities within our schools. So if they're there for the young people, they've got something to aim for. And I certainly know of 3 pupils from Edenfield School who are now tutors in skiing overseas, 2 in Japan, oddly enough, that all started on the hill. So let's be proud of it and keep it going and keep the flags flying.
Thank you, Councillor Cheetham. Here, a great cheerleader for Rosendale there, aren't we? Councillor Neil.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I did declare an interest, obviously, in the Ashcroft, and having heard about the hill, it just triggered a memory that in 1990, they held ITV telethon where the Mayor of Rossendale wasn't keen going down the hill, so they rang the Mayor of Whitworth. I wonder who that could be. And we actually raised about £2,000 for ITV telethon, but I digress. I'm really pleased because many members here will be unaware, apart from probably Councillor Hancock and Councillor Heaton, that on the 1st of April 1996, all the leisure services and facilities from Whitworth were transferred back across to Rossendale because of someone's misdemeanour, but that's another issue. I well remember on the 6th of December 2003, at 3 a.m. in the morning, the old Civic Hall burning down. And the then former chief executive and the then leader of the council, who was the former chief executives involved with the Acute Pennine Trust in Greater Manchester, actually said, well, if I don't get houses on that site, and my response was, well, let me book you a cab. So the council at the time took a decision, and I think David Hancock was instrumental in that, that we actually ended up with the Riverside, which then a few years later became the Ashcroft. I'm quite pleased that the people of Whitworth waited a long time, and everybody said, and there's members in this chamber actually said, when Mike Royds, who was the Borough Council and the Mayor of Whitworth at that time in 2023, when he said, right, you shut in the leisure centre, we'll take it over. And there are people in this room this evening that said, you won't make a go of it. And even my other half said, well, that won't work. And I love it when my other half says that won't work, because I know that it will. All the schools, some of the schools from Bacup, all the schools in Whitworth now use the leisure centre. We employ, or the CIC employ, local people. There are works being done on that building to this day, but it's not cost £5 million. In fact, I think it's cost about £490,000, of which they received a community support grants at the time to do some of the work. So the Ashcroft, as Councillor Smith has indicated, and other facilities in Whitworth, I'd say to the leader of the council and to the chief executive and the head of legal, it's not that you're waiting for us. There are members from the town council who have had long discussions with Mr. Smurthwaite and other officers. And let's not wait till the 11th hour. Let's get on and sort it out now, because I don't want someone from Blackburn, Burnley or Pendle deciding what the good people Whitworth should have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Neil. Councillor Harris, did you wish to speak?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I wasn't going to, we're on a bit of a nostalgic trip tonight. I mentioned the Olympic Games. I was one of the group in Manchester who, together with Bob Scott, took a leadership decision to bid for the Olympic Games, which fortunately I think we didn't get, but we did get the Commonwealth Games subsequently. The report tonight, I think, as members on this side and the opposition have said, is worthy of support. We've had a number of reports actually on leisure facilities. Last year we had the sport and activity strategy, for example, setting out where we might seek to go. I think the timescale, I think Councillor Scott's right in this, of the restrictions put on us of the LGR in the next year or so do place restrictions on us, and we should be cognizant of that. The Chief Executive and myself were at a meeting, a Lancashire-wide meeting last week, at which the experience of Councillor Mike, then Councillor Mike Kelly, the leader of West Cheshire, when it was formed as a unitary authority back in 2009, was reporting on how it had gone and some of the problems. And part of his presentation was that in relation to leisure facilities, 6 years later, they were dealing with what he said were unfunded promises from the predecessor councils of things that they would like to see, but for which there was no funding. And I dropped a note to cabinet colleagues when I came back from the meeting to say that's a salutary lesson for us in dealing with this report. Because in many ways, I'd agree with opposition members. I'd like to see other facilities. There are others that could be mentioned. With the reports that we've had in the last year or so show that our outdoor sports facilities, mainly for football, we've got 140 teams in the borough, according to our reports, are playing on very poor quality pitches. As somebody who was a rugby player, I can remember those horrible days in the middle of winter, very muddy fields in the towns surrounding Bristol, where I was playing at the time. It would be very easy for us to come here and suggest that either we should put forward into our proposals some plans. The reality is that in a year or so, and Councillor Smith's referred to this, we will not be in a position to take those forward and to give basically a lie to our constituents that us here now saying we can go forward with unfunded proposals for leisure facilities is just to con them. It may happen, it may not happen. The likelihood is, I think, and we've seen it in other unitary authorities, most recently probably in Cumbria, where there's been reorganisation, the new members and officers quite rightly sit on the resources they have until they've got a clear picture of where things are going. So it's likely to be some years ahead when anybody is going to make any new decisions for investment. What we have here, I think, is a proposal that we can take forward and believe that is sustainable within the resources we've got. I was going to refer to, because Councillor Barnes in her proposal has referred to it, an update in relation to the Pride in Place funding. And if for those who got the report, you can check out in paragraph 5.5, it says that we've applied for funding for Pride in Place. As an update, and many members will know this, if people are watching it on streaming, they may not. Pride in Place funding for the next 10 years gives the Rottenstall area of the borough, principally Crawshire Booth, Waterfoot, and Crawshire Booth, Rottenstall, and Waterfoot, a package of funding chaired by Ian Taylor, who's also the chair of the Whitaker. The Pride in Place board, which is independent of this body, have now drawn up a 4-year plan for initial funding, which has been signed off by the ministry. One of the reasons I think it's important that we take that into account is that of the funding that's been agreed, a further 1.6 million, in addition to the 2.5 million that's in para 8.1 tonight, would go towards the extension at Marlpits, which gives us a fairly substantial additional fund of money. In addition, the Pride in Place board, with the backing of the leisure trusts, and our own officers have secured funding from the Football Foundation for multi-pitch facilities at both Alder Grange and at Marlpits, in addition to money through Pride in Place. It's one of the things that we said in the strategy review last year, that we need to look to outside sources of funding. And I think those are good examples of what is now being achieved as a result of that process. There are some small other sums of money that have been allocated through the cluster group. The way we've structured, the board has structured the Pride in Place proposal is that a group of members have looked in 6 local clusters, geographic and topic based, which has involved people who've put forward proposals, local community representatives and board members, so that this has been very much a community-based approach, which I found quite an interesting one. It's been very bottom up, and I have to say at one stage I wasn't entirely convinced putting groups of people in a room who've got competing proposals for a fixed sum of money would work, but it has worked. I think it's been an excellent example of the collaboration amongst community groups that we do so well in Rosendale. So I just add to that, this proposal goes forward with further funding to back up the funding that we may put in. And hopefully, as things like Pride in Place and other sources of funding become available, the resources behind the leisure activity programme will further increase. I support the proposal, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harris. Councillor Payne, did you wish to speak?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I too welcome the report. It's clear that the current financial position of the Leisure Trust is not sustainable. It doesn't generate enough money to invest, and this comes on top of many years of lack of investment. And I think this shows in some of the standards of the facilities that we have available to us. When I was looking for a new gym, I did check out Pioneer and Mile Pits, and though the cost of them was quite low, I didn't feel the quality was sufficient to make me want to join those. Certainly agree with the principle of saving VAT by going to this agency model, but I think we need some more clarity on what this model involves. In particular, what are the costs involved of the agency and how much of this £92,000 will be eroded in additional costs? And the control of the assets, who now controls the facilities and who is in charge of managing them, and what priorities will they take? Having said that, clearly this extra funding gives us an opportunity to change the way in which we run the Leisure Trust. And I would very much like to see this short-term priority in trying to increase participation. We know that participation in sport and leisure is good for both physical and mental well-being. And there is a chance here, I think, to increase the capacity of the facilities and also the quality to get more people involved. I think it would be particularly good to see Rossendale residents who don't currently engage in sport or leisure facilities to get involved and increase the number of people that are taking part. I'm glad that no one has mentioned paying back the loan. I don't think that should be the priority here. I think it should be in improving the standard and the quality of the facilities that we have. So overall, again, I welcome the report. I welcome the opportunities that it gives us to do things, but very much hope to see that this is taken to increase participation levels across the borough. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. Anybody? Councillor Adshead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to pick up on the Hill again. The Hill's been mentioned on a couple of occasions. I must say it was with surprise that I read that section of this report, which categorises the activity at the Hill as outside of physical activity, sport and leisure. My understanding was always been that skiing falls pretty solidly within that categorisation. So that was something of a surprise. And also I was disappointed to see that this iconic facility, which has been well discussed already tonight, falls outside the core plans for investment. However, I welcomed the reassurance from the lead member, who, as I understand, has indicated that the facility will continue. And I hope there are some positive outcomes come from the options appraisal. However, my disappointment that it falls outside of our core activity remains. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Radstead. Do any other members wish to speak? Councillor Barnes, do you wish to come back?
There's a lot to come back at there, isn't there, really? I think I'll just start by thanking members for the contributions. And there was some really interesting points I felt. I think for me, we are talking about a significant investment in our leisure provision in the borough. And that is it's included within the capital programme, but we agreed a £30 million capital programme at our March meeting, members. It's, you know, there's some good stuff going on in this borough. I do feel it's important to remind people that leisure is not statutory service. It's not statutory activity. And we were, you might sigh, Councillor Smith, but over the last 14 years with the last government was really tough for councils. Collectively, you spoke, I let you speak, I expect you to let me respond. Collectively as a council, we lost over £30 million during that period. That's a lot of money that could have been invested in leisure provision. Anyway, we didn't get the chance. And our core funding dropped by over 50% during that period. I remember Theresa May, talking of history lessons, back in 2016 saying, we like councils when they do what only they can do. And she was talking about the statutory functions of a council. They never supported this kind of activity. And we felt it in our budget settlement year in, year out. When we picked up the leadership of the council, we had a controlling group ready to spend £7 million on a swimming pool in the wealthiest ward in the borough, but quite happy to see a town centre that had more empty shops than any town of its size in the country. That's the kind of priorities we inherited. And I think we've made significant inroads into our town centres over that time. I want to pick up on Councillor McInnes's point. And to me, actually, it's one of the benefits of moving to new council structures. You don't hear of very many swimming pools closing in areas that have unitary councils or Mets. And that is because they are able to use the public health budget to subsidise this kind of activity. Because of our two-tier system, we've not been able to access funds from the county. They've kept that money to themselves. So we would have been able to do far more, I feel, with a bit more cooperation from that top-tier partner, or if we'd have had a different structure. I'll come to Councillor Ritson now and the point around the review. The review was not the exercise in itself. The work that we plan to do is the end result. It formed part of the evidence for that. It wasn't the be all and end all. What we're going to do on the back of that piece of work is the be all and end all. And Councillor Budd's point around VAT savings, the Leisure Trust was formed to save rates, business rates. If my memory serves me correctly, it saved £175,000 a year at the time when it was put together. Thank you to everybody else. Oh, sorry, there was a piece on the 92,000, which I will come to in a moment. Thank you, Councillor Harris, for picking up on the PIP activity. I have asked the team to put a member briefing in place to talk to members more generally about the work that's coming through that process. I hope that's useful to you. In terms of the £92,000, it is real. It's based on a settled position. In 2023, HMRC accepted that local councils can treat the supply of certain leisure services as non-business for VAT purposes. That's the so-called Chelmsford route. Where that treatment applies, VAT can be recovered on related expenditure. The £92,000 figure reflects a careful analysis of the Leisure Trust's input VAT against the cost base. We will commission a VAT specialist to dot the I's and cross the T's, but we are aware that a number of other organisations are going down a similar route for similar reasons. So we're confident that that amount of money will be a total sum that will be available through that mechanism. All in all, with the investment and this VAT sum, I think I got it to about £400,000 a year once these things have been implemented, that the Leisure Trust will benefit from. It's not just investment in antiquated facilities, it's also that extra resource on the revenue budget that's important. I hope that answers some of members' questions. By all means, do speak to me outside this meeting if there is anything else you'd like to know. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barnes. Do any other members wish to speak before we move to the vote? Okay, then can we move to the vote then? On the recommendations given in the report, those in favour? Clearly carried. Thank you. So now move to item C2 is the Rosendale Local Plan Report. Can I have a mover for that report?
Me again, I'm afraid. I'll move that report and speak to it if it's seconded. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Do we have a seconder for the report?
I'll second it, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Barnes, just to present the report.
Thank you. Okay. The purpose of this report really is to formally commence a new local plan for Rossendale, to approve a timetable and delegated authority around that plan making process, and to make use of the funding that we have secured from MHCLG, £108,000 for that local plan from that local plan implementation fund, and this has been given for us to accelerate that process, and it accelerates it by 6 months, so it's not a massive change to proceedings. Right, key recommendations are to approve that process. We'll also look to publish a notice of intention to commence a new local plan by the 30th of June 2026. The oversight will be maintained by the local plan steering group, and efforts have been made today to make that a little bit bigger, because I think the more members that are involved with that process, the better in terms of their understanding of what's going on. And also to delegate authority to the Director of Economic Development in consultation with the lead member for planning. And that delegation is around the publishing and update of the local plan timetable, approving the documents for gateways 1, 2 and 3, and approving the evidence base and supporting documents, and also to finalise and publish the statutory scoping consultation ahead of that Gateway 1, which is by the 30th of October. Members will note there's a whole new language around this. It's all about gateways. They've always got to come up with something different, haven't they? Okay, so just a little bit by way of background, new regulations came through under the Levelling Up and Regeneration Act in 2023, and also the Town and Country Planning regulations of 2026. And those require local plans to be prepared in a 30-month time frame. Rosendale's current plan, current local plan for 2019 to 2026 was adopted in 2021, and we are required to review that plan every 5 years. The funding accelerates the process by 6 months, as I've already said. Okay, right. I won't go through any more of the process, but I will highlight just the risks and how it interlinks with local government reorganisation. Failure to meet the deadlines will mean losing this additional funding of 108,000, and those who've paid attention to the putting local plans in place over time will know just how costly an exercise it is. So that extra funding is useful for this process. An up-to-date local plan is required to maintain our 5-year housing land supply. And without our 5-year land supply, we are at risk of speculative development. At the moment, we have not got a 5-year land supply. So another good reason why we need to be looking at this particular issue closely at the moment. I suppose some people might be thinking, and it's like the Leisure Review to a degree, why are we doing this when there's local reorganisation on the horizon? But we have been advised that reorg should not delay the local plan preparation. And what we are doing is, we know that our some of our neighbours are in a very similar place with their local plans, particularly Pendle and Hyndburn. So we are looking to work with them to share costs and share the evidence base. So I have I think outlined most of the aspects of this report. I suppose in short that we are set to accelerate the local plan process under the new regulations. We want to, we'll need to publish that formal notice in June 2026 and conduct a scoping consultation and produce and proceed through a structured 20-month timetable. And we've been able to lever in some government funding to support that process. I'm happy to answer any questions, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bowles. Do any members wish to comment? Councillor Ritson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, it's just a quick one. I think the most important thing around this is how you engage the communities, because I think the public don't necessarily understand exactly what a local plan is or what that means for them. There isn't as much detail as I'd like in there as to how we're going to do that. So I think that is the question really to put forward, is how are we going to engage them? How early are we going to engage them? And not just engage, but educate around what the local plan is and how it will affect them as well. Thank you.
Councillor Woods.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, we're obviously supporting this because we have to. It's a statutory process. It's right we get on with it and make use of the funding available. I think it's really important that we do engage communities as early as possible. We need to be honest about where we've previously been, because the last local plan process I don't think was really good enough. It was initially rejected, it was delayed, and in the end it didn't carry the full confidence of members or residents. We really do have to do better this time, I think. One of the big issues is, of course, land allocation. And I want us to see us properly prioritising brownfield sites and not slipping into what people will quickly see as a green belt grab. And just as important as how we engage, as I said, with businesses and residents, consultation's got to be meaningful. It can't just be a tick box exercise. People need to know what's happening, understand why it matters, and feel that they've actually got a voice in it. I felt too many residents last time felt that decisions had already been made before they'd even been asked. And this really matters because these plans shape our borough for years, as we know. Because what we're seeing now in significant impacts that change places forever, such as in Edenfield, Helmshaw and Bacup, goes all the way back to consultations at the beginning of the last local plan, I think going back as far as 2012. When I was first involved in the Grain Residents Association, and they're aware that they were trying to get involved early. And not many people are aware early enough to be able to do so. There's a clear lesson to be learned from last time round around the housing strategy. You may recall that we didn't have one in place when the last local plan was actually put to full council. It was only sorted later after we challenged its absence. So we now have a housing strategy, and it needs to actually mean something this time. It should shape the plans so that we get the right homes and jobs in the right places without destroying the character of the valley. So, yeah, we'll support this, but let's be clear, we can't repeat the mistakes of last time round, in my view. Our residents expect and deserve better, and I hope that this time we can get it right. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Woods, does anybody? Councillor Adshead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Really just to pick up on points which have already been raised here. Equally, I would welcome full consultation and education for the public with this. I recognise this is a huge task for our officers, and I know they'll deal with it well. It's a great team. But the other point I just wanted to pick up on is that Councillor Woods made about prioritisation of brownfield sites, which is something which I think is of key importance, and I hope that that will be sufficient emphasis will be placed on that in the local plan process. Thank you.
Any other comments, Councillor Harris?
Yes, just referring to the brownfield sites issue, and there will be loads of others coming up in the local plan, but obviously the sites, and particularly housing sites as well as in sites for business, are going to be a crucial factor. We do have a current database. When I last checked on it, and I have discussed this with David Smurthwaite, we have the capacity, in theory, to build about 800 properties on those sites, but most of them have now been built on. The remaining capacity identified is very low. I remember from memory, it was something like 70 properties. And in some cases, they're just one building, a site big enough for one house. And we don't have builders willing to build on those sites. So it isn't just an issue about identifying them, it's actually having the means of taking them forward. And we'll kid ourselves if we think that we can invent the sites. Some of them are actually occupied by industry at the moment. So we can't actually say to them, oh, we'd like to build houses there. Would you just close your firm down and we will find a builder to build? We don't have the builders. So we do have to take a realistic approach to this. There is demand for housing, and it's very easy to say, well, we'll only build on brownfield sites. As I said, we just don't, we haven't identified them. If people here can identify them, I'm sure they can at the planning department, and David Smurthwaite, who's the lead officer, know, and we will look at that. But at the moment, they're just not there in the numbers that will lead to any significant change in our housing supply in the near future.
Thank you, Councillor Harris. Any other members wish to comment? Councillor Burns, do you wish to respond?
Yes, please. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. The process does allow for, of course, it does allow for community consultation. I don't think there's as much consultation as there was last time round, because if you remember, I think there was about 4 or 5 6-week consultation processes in the whole process, if you like, and I think some of that was it does mean for a very long plan making takes a very long time. It certainly, I think, took us, was it 5 years, 6 years? It was a long time to make the last one. And I know councils, they still don't have a plan in place. I think York's one of them, isn't it? So it isn't easy putting the plan in place. I will ask our forward planning team to outline what the consultation process looks like from our point of view. In terms of brownfield sites, I think over time we have prioritised brownfield sites very clearly in our policies. But what happens is those sites get used up. As Nick said, some of them are small sites, but some of them are very difficult sites as well. And without government funding to bring some of those sites forward, and we've really struggled to access that in the past, in part because it's there if you've got a site that needs 5,000 houses, but of course nowhere in Rosendale would take that. So it has been difficult. So I'm hoping for a bit more support from government around this issue, because of course we want to build on brownfield sites. But I will say now it is incredibly challenging setting a local plan. Nobody wants houses near them. Nobody does. And I think, you know, we can talk to people all day, every day for the next 6 months, and you're not going to convince people that they'll want houses near them. That's been my experience. Maybe it's just me, but people generally don't seem to want building near them. I like the idea that much more community consultation would mean that they were agreeing with it and happy with it, but I'm to be convinced about it, really. In terms of Councillor Wood's comments, of course, I expect Councillor Wood to be very damning about anything we've done. But I do think that, you know, there was a public hearing and into our local plan, it was accepted. It was a difficult plan to set. There's no getting away from that. I think our strategy in the end was not to build on the congestion in the middle of the borough, and to look at working on the periphery of the borough. But we're going to have to be a lot more imaginative going forward, because of course our housing numbers have gone up. It's going to be about density. It is going to be about using all those tiny sites. It's going to be about a whole range of things, particularly if we want to avoid flood risks in any way. So as I say, I commend the report to members, and look forward to the work done by the local plan steering group. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barnes. If no other members wish to speak, can we now move on to the vote and the recommendations of the report? All those in favour? Okay, thank you. That's clearly carried. Item C3 is urgent decisions. Members are asked to note that 2 special urgency decisions have been taken by the Cabinet since the last meeting. These decisions are detailed in the public notices and were taken in order to accept grant funding within the required timescales for the Local Authority Housing Fund and the Crisis and Resilience Fund. Copies of these were included in the links in the agenda pack for information. Thank you. Item D is notice of motion, and D1 is a motion from Councillor Julie Adshead and Councillor John Payne. Councillor Adshead, would you like to move the motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I will. Just before I proceed, I have agreed a small amendment to the motion with the monitoring officer just prior to this meeting. So under paragraph 3, this should now read, this council resolves to undertake a full costing of and proceed to implement the following changes. Thank you. You will recall that we noted our concern at the council budget setting meeting with regard to the increases in charges for collection of bulky waste. A single item collection now costs £25, and that's an increase of 14% on the previous level of charging. Household fly tipping is a persistent problem throughout the valley and has a very detrimental, huge detrimental effect on local neighbourhoods, communities and residents. And there is a significant cost involved with collection of household fly tipping. With the increase in revenue support announced at the last meeting on budget setting and the commitment to pass the benefits of that to our communities, this is a good time to review our charging scheme for the collection of household items. We are out of step with neighbouring authorities. For example, Bolton offer free collection for those receiving council tax support. They also operate their collections in partnership with a community furniture store so that items in good condition can be sold on. That might also be something that it's worth us thinking about. Blackburn and Darwin offer free collection of up to 100 units for all residents each year, and 100 units would equate to, for example, a mattress, a chest of drawers, a sofa, a radiator and a bag of waste. In Hyndburn, just next door, all residents are entitled to have free collection of up to 6 items each month. We're out of kilter. We propose a mixture of measures, which you'll find detail of in the notice of motion. And these will both simplify the pricing structure and ensure that everyone gets some opportunity to dispose of their bulky items without charge. It will also mean that those who are in the most financial need are offered a free collection. We believe that this will have a positive outcome on the household fly tipping problem. It will support our residents and not involve great cost to the council. It may even save money when balanced against the cost of fly tipping collection and enforcement. This motion picks up on 3 of the Valley Plan priorities: high quality environment, healthy and proud communities, and an effective and efficient council. As I said, you can read the detail of our proposals in the notice, and I hope that you will support the motion. Thank you. I also reserve my right to speak. I forgot to mention that at the beginning. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, Councillor Hudson. Councillor Payne, do you wish to second the motion?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'll second the motion.
Councillor Lithgow.
Can I offer a friendly? Sorry.
Amendment.
A friendly amendment, please. Yeah, thank you very much. I hope it's a friendly amendment. Anyway, it's intended to be.
Carry it.
You want me to introduce that now? Or? Okay.
Yes, please.
Okay, so the revised resolution would read, first of all, to modify waste collection charges by introducing a revised simplified charging model for bulky waste collection, so it will cost £20 for up to 3 items and then £14 each for any additional items. Secondly, to introduce an annual bulky waste amnesty weekend offering up to 50 slots on a first come, first served basis for an initial trial basis. So if that's seconded, I'll speak to that, if that's how it works.
I'll second that.
Councillor Lithgow, do you wish?
Sorry, I just didn't quite catch the beginning of that. A simplified charging structure of?
So it would be for bulky waste collection, £20 for up to 3 items, and then £14 each for any additional items on top of that. And then the second one was introduce an annual bulky waste amnesty weekend, offering up to 50 slots on a first come, first served basis for an initial trial basis, which I think is.
Thank you. And that would include the free collection for the households on
I'll come to that. I've left that out. I'll explain why in a minute.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Do you want me to go through and explain the rationale for that? It was suggested we reduce charges at the annual budget setting. At that time, and indeed at the present time, I can find no significant evidence that charging level significantly impacts on incidents of fly tipping, i.e. people who behave responsibly do so, and those who don't will not be impacted by the cost. But I recognise and share the concerns over levels of fly tipping, so I think we could try to simplify and reduce the cost, and this hopefully will support residents in doing the right thing. So we'll think we should give it a go and see what the impact it has. So the first resolution gives a cost reduction and simple and clear charging structure. There is also a small overall reduction in cost to add incentive for people to take this up. The second part of the resolution, I put it very clearly, it's very clearly based on the third part of the original resolution, but sets a figure of 50, which officers think is manageable. So I think in a weekend we could do 50, we think. I'd like to explain the elements that are not included. So we have the one free bulky waste for pensioners and residents in receipt of council tax support will be very difficult for us to administrate due to our IT systems not linking. Also, I think with pensioners are a very diverse group in terms of financial means. Also, I've not included the provision for regular community skips for a number of different reasons. Firstly, under new disposal legislation, we will now have to collect bulky items via 3 individual collection streams and deliver the collected items to 3 different locations. So the POPs are delivered by RBC to Salford, normal bulky waste goes to Burnley, and white goods and electricals are collected from Henrietta Street. So the skips would have to be manually sorted following collection. In addition, they could always contain hazardous materials such as asbestos, other materials which were very problematic for the staff to work with, particularly they have to sort through the skips when they get back. So all the skips would have to be sorted back at Henrietta Street, which would be time consuming and can contain some potential risks for members of staff. Also, skips placed in certain places would not be popular, I don't think, with residents. It's likely that there would be side tipping and residents would see this as a place to leave rubbish at other times. Another factor, if the residents will normally have to carry items for disposal in their car to the skip, then they could just as easily take the LCC tip at any time during the week, including weekends, and put it into the correct skip, and staff are there to advise on which is the right skip to put the stuff in. So these are intended to be helpful, practical and supportive changes that can be trialled and the impact reviewed. So I've spoken to officers about those and they're willing to give this a go and they think we can make it work. So we think it does represent a gesture towards you. These are certain elements, but I've given the reasons for those. So we hope you'll accept that. It is meant with the best of intentions, and I still don't think it might much any difference, but I'm willing to give it a go. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lithgow. I mean, in principle, that sounds something that we could go with. I would like to leave the option open, though, to given how out of step we are with local boroughs, to extend the free collection in future at some point. But let's see how it goes.
Okay, so we're going to vote on the amendment to see if that becomes a substantive motion. So all those in favour of the amendment? You're looking confused.
We're going to read it again to clarify what the motion would become. Would that be helpful?
Can I take those against? And abstain. Abstain. You abstain, right? Right. So I think we can say that's carried. Isn't it? Yeah, the amendment stands, yes, and it's become the substantive, I can't say it. Right, are there any further amendments? Please say no. Any comments?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll be. There's nothing in either the original motion or the amended motion that we disagree with in principle. I hope it goes without saying that we support measures to tackle fly tipping, and a simplified charging structure with a free element could well play a role in that. Our difficulty with it is that it wasn't costed, and I didn't quite identify from Councillor Adsed's first amendment whether or not that made the motion dependent on costing or not. Approving a policy before its financial impact has been calculated or estimated is not a responsible way to make decisions about taxpayers' money. And for that reason, we won't be supporting the motion, but neither will we vote against it. If the portfolio holder can tell us whether it's been costed and whether it's affordable within current budgets, we may be able to support it. But it's not a principled opposition. We're in favour of the measures, but we're not in favour of approving it without having done the costings.
There will be a cost implication, and we estimate for around £10,000, depending on how it goes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I just wanted to say a few words about the original motion. When I read it, I was quite surprised that
Councillor McInnes, that's not the motion now. The amendment is the motion now.
yeah, but it's relevant to the amended motion. It's the whole
yeah.
principle of encouraging people to skip unwanted items. And on initial reading, I couldn't believe how environmentally unfriendly it sounded. I was quite surprised to see this from the Green Party. And I think we've totally overlooked the Council's climate change strategy, which was adopted in 2019 and championed by Councillor Adshead, which states we will work with local communities to promote greater awareness of the role they can play in reducing their carbon consumption and providing practical approaches to reduce, reuse and recycle. So I'm glad that Councillor Adshead mentioned Bolton working with a community furniture store with the waste that they collect, because this is something that's missing. We shouldn't be encouraging our residents to just skip unwanted items. We should be following our climate action plan, which again was adopted by Rosendale Borough Council, which is to explore the potential for collaborating with local charities and organisations to segregate and redistribute good quality products from households. And there are many local charities who will take second-hand furniture. We don't have to encourage our residents to put it in a skip. We've got the Storehouse Project, who will collect from people's homes, saving the trouble of having to drive to a skip or to a tip. They will deliver to clients who have been referred to them by agencies such as this council, such as Citizens Advice. There's the Orchard Furniture Recycling at Bacup, who are committed to reducing waste sent to landfill and promoting sustainable living. The British Heart Foundation and even the British Red Cross will collect household and electrical items for resale and reuse in their charity shops. And this is all in line with Rosendale Borough Council's action plan, climate action plan. And these are the routes that we should be choosing, not simply making it easy for people to just put unwanted items into a skip. And I do think we need to bear in mind the need to reduce, lowering consumption, to reuse, giving items a second life, and to recycle, turning waste into new products.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Adshead, then Councillor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I absolutely agree. And probably I should have put that in the motion as well, but I did mention it in my introduction. But obviously, those routes should be prioritised. But the reality is that nonetheless, people do dump their household waste, and this is a strategy to try and help with that. Thank you.
Councillor Neil.
Yes, Madam Mayor. The reason I supported the amendment, a trial is better than not doing anything at all. And just to pick up on a point from Councillor McInnes, the British Heart Foundation shop in Rochdale, which is one of the largest, is actually closing down. But about 3 years ago, the government today told manufacturers of white goods that they had to actually take away and wherever possible recycle those white goods instead of having them dumped. But as I say, the reason for supporting the amendment was that it's better than not doing anything at all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Woods.
Yeah, I think our initial concerns were because of the Section 151 officer's comment, the extent of the impact to be calculated if approved. But given the reassurances from Councillor Lithgow on the estimate, obviously some work has been done, so we're comfortable to vote for the amendment. Sorry, the substantive.
Do we put the vote again?
Right. Anybody else wish to speak? No. So shall we go to the vote then? All those in favour of the substantive amended, whatever you call it, motion? All in favour? That's carried. Thank you very much. Okay, that concludes the business of the council this evening. Can I thank all members for their participation in the meeting and would like to now declare the meeting closed. The next council meeting will be the 27th of May, which will be annual council. This has been my last full council, so I'd like to thank all members for their support and for behaving yourself most of the time. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, before you do close the meeting, can I take this opportunity on behalf of members of council to thank you for your good humour, your patience and taking members' comments and concerns on board. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councillor.